Have you ever felt as though a place you've never been was calling your name? Not with words, but with an invisible thread that pulls straight into your heart. I felt that the moment I set foot in Tibet. They say, in the highest reaches of the Himalayas, there is a temple in the clouds, where past, present, and future merge into one, and only those bound by karma from a previous life will find it. Today I want to tell you about my journey to Tibet, one that began in pain, but led me to a secret door, where time, space, and even my very self began to change. I arrived in Tibet in the autumn, when the wind carried the scent of incense and the distant sound of chanting. I did not come to Tibet to explore, nor to travel. I came to heal. In the months before, my life felt like a darkened room. I had lost someone dear, my relationships had shattered, and my mind was adrift. Some mornings, I would wake and ask myself, am I living or merely existing? An old monk by the roadside looked at me for a long time, then pointed toward the misty peaks. You have been there before, not in this life. I froze, and before I could ask, he walked away. From that moment, I knew this trip was no longer about tourism. It was a journey of return. The locals told me the temple appears on no map. Those who find it either attain enlightenment or vanish forever. Centuries ago, a group of practitioners climbed the Himalayas in search of a place to train. Only one returned, his eyes empty, as if he had seen 1,000 lifetimes. Strangely, everyone who sought the temple shared the same dream, a stone gate, floating in a sea of white clouds. I rented a small room in an old inn. At night, the wind through the wooden shutters made a sound like distant chanting. In those nights, I dreamt again, and each time, the dream grew clearer. I was walking up stone steps, surrounded by white clouds, with the sound of a bell drawing nearer. One night, I fell asleep, and a strange dream came to me. I stood in a vast sea of clouds, before an endless staircase of stone, leading to a golden gate carved with unfamiliar symbols. Beyond the gate, light poured out, blinding and pure. A voice spoke, not male, not female, warm yet commanding. You have traveled far enough. Step forward, but remember, not everyone finds the way back. As I was about to step, a figure in a crimson robe appeared. His eyes shone like starlight, and he shook his head. The whole sea of clouds swirled violently, and I awoke, heart pounding, my palms damp with sweat. Outside, the bells from the old tower rang again, deep and distant, as though stitching my dream to reality. I didn't know if it was merely a dream or a warning from another realm, but from that moment, I understood. My journey was not just for healing, it was a pilgrimage written long before I was born. I decided to follow the dream. I set off at dawn, while mist still clung to the rooftops of the town. The innkeeper quietly handed me a deep red shawl and said, "On the road, if you hear a voice calling, do not answer." His words left me both anxious and curious. The mountain path was lined with cliffs and snowdrifts, but the most unsettling thing was the sound that drifted out of the fog. Distant chanting, temple bells ringing from nowhere. Once I saw a brown-robed figure walking ahead, but when I hurried forward, there were only fading footprints in the snow. I began to wonder, was this reality, or was I walking through the memories of a past life? After 3 days, I saw it, the stone gate from my dream. Clouds rolled like an ocean, spilling through the rocky pass, and beyond them shone golden light. A voice rose in my mind. Once you step through, you will remember everything, but you cannot return. My heart pounded. My hands trembled. I knew this was no longer exploration. This was karma calling me home. I stepped forward, and there it was, a temple floating on a sea of clouds, its walls covered in moss, its curved roof seeming to touch the sky. The air was so still, I could hear my own heartbeat. The wind carried a strange scent, part incense, part the earthy smell after rain. With each step, the mist parted, as if guiding me. On the stone walls were carvings of thousands of faces, all strangely familiar. I realized they were the faces of people I had met across countless lifetimes. A sudden gust pushed open the temple doors, revealing a warm, golden glow from within. The chanting grew clearer now, mingling with the deep resonance of a bell, inviting me, or warning me. As I reached out to touch the weathered wooden door, an aged yet warm hand rested on my shoulder. I turned, and there stood an old master monk, his eyes bright yet vast as the sky. He spoke softly. You have found your way here, but not everyone is ready to enter. Inside the main hall, I saw a statue of the Buddha, smiling gently, but his eyes looked straight through me, into my very bones. An old monk emerged from the shadows. His voice was deep, as though speaking through stone. You once sat here, chanting for lost souls, but your vow was left unfinished, so now you must return. I froze. Had every step I'd taken been only to return to the place I once abandoned? As he recited an ancient mantra, the statues seemed to shift. The firelight flickered, casting warped shadows on the walls, shadows of hundreds of lives passing before me. I saw myself in each one, a wanderer, a warrior, a monk, and each time I returned to this temple. The monk placed his hand on my forehead. A surge of heat filled my mind, and memory came rushing back. In a past life, I had left during a liberation ritual, called away by a loved one in that lifetime. I had carried with me the debt of hundreds of souls left unrested. This, he said, is your final chance to repay, before that karma follows you into another life. I knelt, tears streaming down my face. All the pain and loss of this life suddenly made sense. I realized I had found this temple not out of curiosity, but to repay the debt of my past life. A gentle breeze swept through, filling the air with incense. The bells rang again, and all resentment dissolved into stillness. I don't know how long I knelt in prayer. When I opened my eyes, the temple was empty. the door opening only to a barren mountainside. No statue, no old monk, no butter lamps. But in my pocket was still the small piece of paper with the strange symbols from before. Each night, when the wind passes my window, I hear the distant bells again, as if to remind me, this journey is far from over. Before I left the temple, an old monk appeared from the mist, smiling as he said, "Karma is not a sentence, but an invitation to return. When you have repaid it all, every path leads to freedom." I turned back. The temple was gone, leaving only the endless white sea of clouds. I knew I had just closed one cycle of rebirth and begun another. Lighter, brighter. I stepped out into the freezing Tibetan night. The words of the old monk echoed in my mind. There are debts which, if you do not repay in this life, you will repay in the next. I left the village the next morning, but whenever I close my eyes, I still see myself standing before that gate. Something is still waiting for my return. And deep down, I know this life will not be enough to repay it. If this story touched you, leave a comment and share it with those who believe that in this world, there are places we can only find when past karma calls us back. Don't forget to subscribe, for the journey isn't over, and perhaps the next story will be yours.